Math is an age-old problem, and this talk is going to be about really how we've spent the last 5 years here at the University of Arizona figuring out how to deal with math with our most at-risk population. We've been working on this for quite some time, actually, as an entire university, and we figured out that we were trying to have our students work with a local community college, and there were a lot of issues with this. People worked really hard, but we found out also that not every student could take, for various reasons, courses at the community college. And we realized that we needed a different solution that would be in-house within our own university system. So we worked out something called Math 100. And this was an innovative approach that really took a hybrid approach to working with students, where we did part of it online and we did part of it in person. Around the same time, Melissa Vito, our Senior VP for Student Affairs, I'm going to look off camera for just a second, Enrollment Management, Academic Initiatives, and Student Success, was talking with a parent at one of the orientations. And they were really complaining and talking a lot about how difficult it was for their student to be able to actually work with a different institution, our local community college, navigate that at the exact same time they were a brand new incoming freshman here at the University of Arizona. And she realized that we needed to also look at another subset of this population that was at risk, one that the math department wasn't yet addressing. And so she sought out a meeting with the math department. So people like myself, her Senior VP for Retention, Jeff Rogera, along with a host of other people, sat down in a room and really discussed what was possible. How were we going to deal with this particular population? And so we came up with an idea that we would have 2 courses. We would have a course called Math 100 AX, which would be a remedial course. It would count towards their graduation, towards full-time status, but not towards their graduation. And then we'd have another course called SAS 100 AX. And this would really be designed to support the students while they were going through their math course with study skills along with some tutoring support. So we really came up with this concept and figured out what we would do with the students. And then our only issue was how we were going to implement it. Now this seems like a pretty easy task. Just get 2 courses on the books, get them started, and get the students enrolled. We do it all the time at the university. Well, it wasn't quite that simple. We got the courses on the books, but this was May when we were having this discussion, and we wanted to get this up and rolling for about 600 students starting in the fall. So really, over the course of time, what we found out in that one summer was we had to not only talk to each other, the academic side with the student affairs side of the house, but we had to figure out within departments partnerships in order to make this happen. We had to connect with financial aid. We had to make sure that the dean of the College of Science had signed off on things. We had to make sure that we had learning specialists in place. The registrar's office got involved. It was actually quite a labor of love for all those people involved. And what we started with at the end of that particular time was these 2 particular courses. The SAS was something that was brand new, SAS 100 AX. Math 100 AX was sort of a hybrid of what we had already done with Math 100. But SAS 100 AX was completely new. And so in order to implement this, we actually needed instructors for this course. So what was amazing about it, and sort of funny actually, is that we ended up having such a hodgepodge of people together. I remember actually giving a lesson on how to use some of the technology they were going to need to use in this course. And it took us almost a half an hour to introduce everybody in the room who were going to be instructors just because of their titles. We had directors, assistant vice presidents, I mean, just an enormous amount of people with an enormous amount of talent that you wouldn't normally and typically see teaching a class at this level for incoming freshmen. So once we got all of these partners together, we had to go ahead and try it out. And what we found after that first year was we were all a little beaten down, to be honest with you. We had students we had helped. We knew that they were more successful from our data than the population who hadn't had these 2 courses, but it didn't feel that way. And we were trying to really figure out what is it that we needed to do. And what we realized was that it wasn't so much that we didn't know how to help these students, but we didn't know how to sell it to them. What we realized we needed was a marketing team. So we really changed our mindset with this. We helped and realized, it helped us to realize that these students saw this as a punishment. the way we had presented to them, they felt that they were having to do this. This was something that was going to make them less than or behind in their own studies. And what we realized is we knew we were giving them an opportunity, but they didn't know that, and their parents didn't know that, and our academic advisors didn't know that. We had to create a way for them to understand this was an opportunity that we were giving them. And so we did that by sitting together, talking about this with a lot of people, getting the marketing team involved, and what came from that was what we called Schedule for Success. This was our turning point. We knew we had an opportunity to give them, but we needed to turn it around in order for them to understand fully what an opportunity it was for them. So our team became very clear. We put it together, we put it in our literature. Our orientation team is where it all starts. And we have people who speak with our students starting from the very beginning when they first walk on campus to sign up for their first classes over the summer. They talk to their parents, they talk to their students, and let them know all of the people are going to be here to help support them. The Math 100AX team, that's our math department class that we have, our SAS 100AX class, which is really focused on all the study skills and learning skills that they're going to need. We also have with us the learning specialists, which are really our mentors and coaches. We've got financial aid counselors available to help them understand their specific needs so that finances aren't the reason that they don't continue. And then, of course, a whole host of tutors, of undergraduate tutors who help support them in the mathematics as they go along. So why math? Why was this the focus? Well, we know that if you don't finish your math within the first year of your undergraduate career, you're much less likely to be retained. Although this is correlational data, we know that it can have a great effect on students overall, and so we thought this was an area that could be targeted. So we decided that essentially after we came up with this Schedule for Success, that we needed to really iterate and change what we do little by little to help give them support. Two things that have come from this are the actual physical spaces that we have for students now that we didn't have 5 years ago. Dr. Gail Bird, who is one of our vice provosts for the academic affairs side of the house, and Dr. Melissa Vito for our student affairs side of the house, really discussed and came together and realized that it was important to give these students a space where they could feel safe to do their math. And so one of the things that we came was an actual classroom. We took off central scheduling. No one else gets to use it anymore. And we named that Pascal's, and that's a place that students can actually come and get support. And then utilizing the residence hall space in La Paz has been critical for the SAS 100AX course, where all of their graduate students help the students also in the after hours. So we try to essentially give students 12 hours of math support throughout the day from 9 to 9 as best we can. The goals we had for the math course were really making sure that we were going to build rapport with our students. And so one of the ways we do that is through this online, real-time cloud classroom, which I'll talk about in just a moment, to give them structured time to ask questions. One of the real difficulties with this group is that they oftentimes are put in online classes, but they tend to avoid it. They're math avoiders. And so in order to get them to stay with the mathematics and actually have them work through it daily, we needed to have some support for them that was a bit more structured. We also know that this population has a host of misconceptions about mathematics, and we needed to make sure that we were trying to address those as best we can. They've been in math classes for 12 years, but haven't necessarily felt success in math classrooms, and we wanted to change that for them. The structure of the class is actually very interactive. We have polls, chatting. We also do cold calling, so if you're online with us, we may call out your name and ask you for an answer to kind of keep you with us, because we know there's a lot of things to distract students online, Facebook, instant messaging, all the different things that they can be involved with besides our class. And we actually have them work in groups. So they'll be in small groups or triads, and they have to work through the problems as I had shown on the slide before. And then they have to present to us. So again, they're going to be graded on this, and they have to give us plausible explanations for the math that they're going through. And then we have the brick and mortar part of this, where they're really coming into a real traditional classroom with their instructors, and they're focusing on more of the study skills aspect. This class has evolved over time. I was just talking to one of the instructors to kind of get an idea of how it's evolved over the past 5 years. And he said, we really focused on traditional study skills at the beginning, and then we started to realize These students weren't having problems in math because they couldn't take notes or they weren't taking notes. They were having problems because they were avoiding math and they weren't engaging with it. So what they worked on was really in these twice-a-week meetings was to give one-on-one support with them with tutors so that they actually address the math, address their homework right there and help them support them through that. Also making sure that they really changed from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. So many of our students come in saying, I just can't do math. I'm not good at math. And then they throw their hands up and kind of look the other way. So what we realized was that in a sense, just like you would avoid anything you don't like in life, we had to help them figure out why was it that they weren't doing the math and having those individual conversations, because for every student it can be different. This is the part of the team that came on that's really sort of the heart of it. The learning specialists. These became our coaches. These are the people who meet with these students one-on-one and learn them specifically. These are the people who have the Kleenex. These are the people who know the resources around campus, and they're really their individual connection to what it is that they can become as a student. So many of our students who have met with our learning specialists talk about that bond that they have, and we know that having a bond with at least 3 people on campus is going to be able to make you more likely to be retained as well. And I know for a lot of our students, the learning specialist is one of those bonds. So what's the impact that we've seen in terms of this program? Well, what we looked at recently was that we had, before Schedules for Success, about 54% of our students were retained from one fall to the next. And at the end of looking at this program, we had to see that our students were retained at about 66%. We just found out recently, today I think it was actually, that we looked at our 2012 cohort, and we were excited to see that for graduation rates, that our students who were in Schedule for Success were actually 8% higher than students who hadn't had this program. So we were excited about that. What did we learn? Well, we learned that we needed to have a common goal, that if everyone in this program wasn't focused on the same thing, it was going to make it difficult. And our goal is really very simple. We want to make sure students get from point A to point B with their math requirement here at the University of Arizona. We know if we can help you finish your math requirement, you're much more likely to graduate. We also figured out that we needed to have data-driven course development. We needed to be collecting data and determining how is our class doing based on what we were doing. So we'd like to change small things as we go along in order to make them more successful. We also realized that creating partnerships across campus was critical. We needed to work with one another. We needed face-to-face, knowing each other's names, and on a campus this size is very important. And finally, that our academic advising community was going to be critical in helping us to let students know what an opportunity this was for them and not a punishment.